Welcome to today's final afternoon lecture. This is going to be what to do if you know nothing about the motion, but you're going to have to debate it anyway. What to do if you know nothing about the motion. I'm sure all of us have found ourselves in a circumstance where we receive a motion, maybe about some political issue, it may be about, say, some economic issue, some financial issue, something that we find ourselves being in a position where we don't know anything about this motion. So now we're not sure exactly what to say about the motion. So what I want to try to do in this lecture is I want to try to give you some tips and some ideas on how you can start to come up with arguments for motions where you're not sure what the argument should be for the motion. You're not sure what the argument should be for the motion. First tip number one. Talk to your partner. Talk to your partner. This is team debate. It's team debate for a reason. Right? You know some things that your partner may not know. And conversely, your partner knows some things that you may not know. So when you're in your preparation time, don't just go your separate ways and have your partner brainstorming ideas, and then you're sitting there and you're brainstorming ideas in your preparation time, but you're coming up with nothing because you don't know anything about the motion. Speak up. Tell your partner, hey partner, we got this motion. I don't know anything about it. Do you know something about it? And if your partner says, yeah, actually I do. I took a class in this subject last semester, so I do know a few things. Then take a few minutes and let your partner educate you about the topic so that you'll be in a position to debate it better. Right? Use your partner as a source of interest. You can't talk to anyone else during your preparation time. You can't talk to anyone else during your preparation time except your partner. So use your partner as a resource. Use your partner as a resource. Second thing to do, you don't know this motion. One of the few things that you can have with you is a dictionary. Every debater should have a dictionary. Why? Because very often in motions that you're not sure what to argue, sometimes it's because you don't understand the terms. Sometimes you don't understand what to argue because you just don't understand the wording of the motion. So what you need to do is you need to look up the definitions of all the words in the motion that you don't understand. You need to look up the definitions of all the words in the motion that you do not understand. And you need to read the definitions until you can understand what it is that you're supposed to be debating. I saw this happen with the motion, this House believes multi-ethnicity is responsible for social division. Remember that motion? This House believes multi-ethnicity is responsible for social division. A lot of people did not understand what that motion was about. And why? Because they didn't understand really what social division meant, and they didn't understand what multi-ethnicity was. But then when we start talking about it, well, what is a person's ethnicity? What determines an ethnicity? Right? Ethnicity could be determined by culture, by religion, by race, by nationality. Right? We start talking about different things that are components that determine the classification of one's ethnicity. And then we say, well, okay, what does multi mean? Multi means multiple or different. Multiple or difference. And then we say, okay, now I'm starting to understand a little bit more now what this motion means by multi-ethnicity. Okay? So once you start to understand what the words are in motion, then you can start to understand how to debate it and what arguments. Because it's very hard to debate something that you don't understand, right? Anyone else have a motion that they tried to debate here that they didn't understand? It's okay, I won't talk about it. This is to help you out. Who had a motion? Who's seen a motion since they've been in the debate academy this week that they looked at the motion and they're like, I don't understand this. I don't know what this motion is all about. It's okay, don't be embarrassed. It happens to all of us. Okay, I'm going to take you and then you.
This house believes that the African Union is going to unite.
Okay. This house believes that the African Union has failed to unite Africa. Now, what about that motion didn't you understand? What confused you about it? What was confusing about that motion? It's okay because there are a lot of other people who didn't, who probably, they may not be here, but there are a lot of other people who didn't understand the motion. Didn't know what the African Union is all about, right? So, you don't know what the African Union is all about. When you're looking at this motion, this House believes that the African Union has failed to unite Africa. So let's just think about the words and see if maybe if we look at the definition of the words, maybe we can start to figure it out. What do we think? First of all, African Union. Those words were capitalized, right? What does it mean when we have capitalized words in motion? It means it's a proper noun, right? So it's probably an organization, right? And then we know it's African Union, so we know it's probably some union of what? African nations, right? Of African states. So now we're starting to understand. And then we look at the rest of the motion, has failed to unite Africa. Well, you know what fail means, right? We may have all failed something at some point in our lives, right? So we know what it means to fail, right? Versus succeed. And to fail in what? Fail to unite Africa. So we know some organization, we may not know anything about the organization, right? You know, I've never heard of the African Union. I don't know what that is. That was the problem, right? But we know what the organization was trying to do. What was the organization trying to do? The motion tells us. Say it. Take this. Don't be afraid to say it. Unite Africa, right? Whatever this organization is, I never heard of it. I'm supposed to argue it failed to unite Africa. Guess what? It's my first argument. We have some organization that the average African person has never heard of. So how can it possibly have united Africa if no one's even heard of the organization? Right? So now you're already off to an argument, right? Based on what you know, or in this case, based on what you don't know. Right? Use that. Use everything that you can to its advantage. How could you come up with your next argument on this motion that you don't know anything about? Do you think Africa is united? No. Why? Tell me why you don't think Africa is united. There's no wrong answer. Just give me one reason. Because of the various conflicts. That's a great answer, right? Because of the various conflicts. I love that answer. It's a great argument. Because then now what can you do? Now you can connect it to examples that you do know of what? Of conflicts. Right? We don't know anything about African Union and its failure to unite Africa, but you know what I do know? I know Africa's not united. How do I know that? Because of all these conflicts that I do know about. And now what can you talk about? Now you can start talking about examples of all of these conflicts that you do know about. You know what I'm doing there? I'm doing my third tip, which is connect the motion to something you do know. Right? The motion is about something you don't know anything about. Connect it to a subject matter that you do know something about. Because now you'll start to have arguments. So now I'm sure you can construct a great argument on why the African Union has failed to unite Africa because of all the numerous conflicts in Africa. You can give me probably a list of various examples of conflicts within Africa. And you can probably give me recent examples. You can probably talk about political parties, maybe. You can probably talk about people. And now you have the foundation for a very good argument. Whereas before when you looked at the motion, you were thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to say. Now you can debate it. What was your motion that you were having trouble with?
It's linked to that what she said. This house believes that Africa will be a united nation.
Okay. Your motion was, this house believes that Africa will, I couldn't hear the last part.
Will be a united nation.
Okay. This house believes that Africa will be a united nation. Right? Now, what didn't you understand about that? What gave you trouble with making arguments on that motion?
My problem was I didn't understand whether it was the issue of evaluating already what has happened and then seeing that.
Hold on 1 second, I'm sorry. I can't hear you because all the noise people coming, so I'm going to shut the door down. I think the class is not out of close. Okay, please continue.
My problem was I didn't really understand like whether the motion was really like purpose. Like because it said it would be a united nation in the near future. I didn't like understand whether it was like they have already evaluated everything the activities of Africa. They have seen that it will be enough, or they still have to put some laws or something in place to see that that should happen. I was like,
okay, so let me restate what you said if I understood it correctly. So when she heard this motion, this house believes that Africa will be a united nation. She didn't really understand what what the motion meant by United Nation, right? Is that fair to say? And what do you mean by United Nation? Do you mean united by laws? Do you mean united by people? Or, what does it mean for something to be a United Nation? Well, let's think about that. Number one, if you're the opening government team, if your first proposition, who's going to determine what that means? Who's going to determine what that means if your first proposition? You will, right? If you're the opening government team, you get to determine what that phrase means. You get to determine what that debate is going to be about, how to frame the debate. So how should you define it? Define the motion in a way that you can understand it. Define the motion in a way that's going to enable you to be able to make some arguments. Don't just, if you're looking at a dictionary or you're trying to come up with a good definition, don't just pick a definition just to pick one. Think about the type of debate that's going to spring from the definitions that you're choosing, from your interpretation of the words in the motion. So if you're first proposition team, you get to define what it means to be a United Nation. And secondly, you can look at examples. What's the first example that might jump to your brain of what is a United Nation? If I say, give me an example of a United Nation, what would you say? What might you say?
Like the OAU.
I can't hear you.
OAU.
OAU, okay. Is OAU a nation or is it an organization?
It's an organization.
It's an organization, right? So what example of a nation is united? Any examples? How about, are there any nations that have united in the name? Right, let's start there. United States of America, right? At one point in United States history, the states were separate, right? At one point they had to come together, they had to unite, they had the Constitution, make a new nation. Right? So you can put that as okay, so now I know, okay, that's a reference point for me in my mind for a united nation. How might Africa be comparable to that? How might Africa be comparable to that? At one point, the United States was a lot of different separate states. Then they came together to form one country. Any comparisons between that and Africa?
To that, I'm comparing that like the United States, right? Maybe I could like political laws and economical laws. That's what's like in the countries.
Yeah, and how about the fact that Africa is a continent of different nation states, right? And unite might mean for all those nation states to come together and do what? And form what?
Form one government.
Form one government. You think that's a good idea?
It might be.
It might be, right? Now you can come up with some reasons probably why it might be a good idea. Why might that be a good idea?
Maybe in the part of like economic activities could be a good idea.
Right, it could be good for the economies, right? Because, where one nation state is weak, another nation state is strong. Together, the rising tide lifts all boats. Right? So now, what are you doing? Now you're coming up with what? With arguments about a motion she didn't know anything about. A motion she didn't know how to debate. But now you can start to, by breaking down the terms and taking control of the words from the motion, now you can start to come up with arguments. Let's say you want the first proposition. You want to you're like, I'm out on this motion. I don't know what the arguments. I don't know what the government team is going to mean by United Nation. Does that mean you can't prepare any arguments? You're doomed? What do you think? No, you're not doomed, right? What can you do? You can still figure out what you think it means. Right? Put yourself in the mindset of the government team, of what you think will be a reasonable interpretation of the words, and then use that to come up with arguments. Use that to come up with arguments. And then if the government team gives you a definition or something that's unreasonable, then hey, maybe you should be challenging that definition if it's truly unreasonable and truly unfair. But try to think of the most reasonable definition, the most reasonable interpretation, and then go from there to try to build your argumentation. Don't feel crippled just because you're not the government team and you don't get the power to define the words. You still have opportunity to understand. Yes, question.
Isn't that not fair for the second part, the second part of the debate? If the government defines it wrongly, the second part they cannot come and define it again, so they are just obliged to create words for that.
That's an excellent question. Good point. The point was, wait a minute. Wait a minute. If the open government team has a very broad definition of United Nation, then I'm not going to be able to come in and offer my definition. That's true. That's true. However, if they have a very broad definition, what's likely to happen? It's likely that your reasonable interpretation is going to fit under that very broad definition. So it's likely whatever arguments you developed will still work for that debate. It's likely whatever arguments that you develop will probably still work for that. Any other motions you want to volunteer? That you had trouble coming up with arguments? I hope this is valuable. Is this valuable? Is this helpful? You starting to see what things are? That's another idea.
The one is, this house believes that all politicians should probably disclose about 60 days before the elections.
Great. Love it. This house believes that all politicians should publicly disclose their finances
60 days before.
60 days before the election. Yeah, this was one of those politics motions that gave people some trouble. What gave you the most trouble about this motion?
So how to come out with this statutory is a problem because first of all, this paper is disclose your finances. There's a lot of what finance are doing. These are private finance or finance is going to the government.
Okay. So let's start with the first part of this motion. Disclosure, right? You know what disclosure means? Right, disclosure means what? To make known to everyone. To make known to everyone. Right. So, we know that this motion, if we don't understand the motion completely, we know that this motion is about politicians disclosing, let's say, something. You don't understand what something is. It's about politicians making something known to everyone. What do we think that the motion is asking the politicians to make known to everyone? What do you think? There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer. I think sometimes when we analyze motions, we're afraid to be wrong, like we're going to analyze it and we're going to get it wrong. Don't be afraid to be wrong. It's okay.
I think that the financial
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you because people were loud. Okay, so she said she interpreted finances to mean campaign finances, right? The money that's given to politicians for their campaign, right? So all politicians should publicly disclose their finances, right? So she interpreted that, and I think that that's a potential interpretation of the motion. And once you have that interpretation of the motion, you know this is about money, right? Regardless of whether it's the campaign's finances or the politician's personal finances or some government finances, we know this is about disclosure of money. And when we want people to disclose what's going on with the money, why is that? What are we concerned about? Right, they're concerned about how they're using the money. How they're using the money. Because if they're misusing their money, what's that called? Say it again? Yeah, say a little bit louder. It's called embezzlement, right? If you misuse money, mismanage funds, right? It's potential embezzlement. So we may not understand this motion completely, but if we think about it for a minute, we can understand that this motion is probably trying to stop who? Stop politicians from doing what? From embezzling funds, right? So it wants to encourage disclosure to try to prevent embezzlement. Now you think you can come up with arguments for it? You can, right? And it's just from thinking about it a little bit, thinking about it a little bit. I want to give you some other strategies to come up with, ways to come up with arguments for motions. Sometimes you may have a motion you don't understand, but it implicates a value. It implicates some type of value. And you can use values to come up with arguments. And oftentimes, depending upon what value you choose, that can dictate what your arguments will end up being. Depending on what value you choose, that can implicate what arguments. So, for example, let's say the motion was, this house believes in death penalty. This house believes in death penalty. This house believes, let me be more specific. This house believes that all drug dealers should be put to death. This house believes that all drug dealers should be put to death. What might be a value that you would argue against that motion? If you were arguing against that motion, if you were arguing no, we shouldn't put drug dealers to death. What value would you? How about, well, you know what, let me take a step back. Does everyone know what a value is? What are some values or principles? That's another word for value. Right? Write these down. I'll give you a list of some. You can come up with your own value. Justice. Right? Justice, that's a value, that's a principle, that's something that's really important, right, that we talk about in society. Whenever we talk about our criminal laws, the sentencing and punishment, right? If you get a topic like a criminal justice topic, the value of justice. How about life? Human life. Human life is something that we value. It's a very important principle, right? Something that we cherish. Human life. How about the quality of life? Some motions implicate the quality of one's life, right? We're trying to determine, we're trying to make arguments about what the impact this policy is going to have on the quality of some person's life. How about knowledge? Right? Knowledge is something else that we value in society. The pursuit of knowledge, the acquisition of information, the utility of information. Right? Knowledge is a general value, a general principle. How about happiness? Right? We all want to be happy. No one wants to be sad or miserable. Right? Happiness is something that we value. Right? It's a principle in society. Sometimes we make policies, we allow certain things to happen because on the principle of happiness. How about individual rights? Yeah, education. Education can be a value. So now that I'm giving you some examples, give me some examples of some other values. I've given you a list. I can give you more over here. What do you think some other values or principles?
What about food and drinks?
I can't hear you.
Food and drinks.
Full attention? I can hear you.
Food and drinks.
Food and drinks. Food and drinks. I don't think food and drinks are values, right? Food and drinks are things. Why do we need food and drink? What's the important? What are we trying to preserve?
No, just food or drinks.
Yeah, but what's the purpose of having food or drinks? Preserve your life, right? So maybe survival, right? Could be something that we value. Yes. Respect, great value, right? Great value. Sometimes we have laws and policies where we believe things, right, as a matter of respect, right? This house believes that children should always do what their parents tell them to do. Right? This house believes that children should always do what their parents to do. What value might you argue in support of on the government side? You might choose the value of respect, right? And say that children should respect their parents. If you were on the opposite side of that motion, what value might you choose? Choice. Might choose choice. How about something more broad? No, if you're on the opposite side of that motion, or if you're arguing that children shouldn't always listen to their parents, right? You might argue, you might have a value of individual rights, right? You might say that no, the child should have the right to make a choice. Right? The child should have the right. The child shouldn't have to listen to whatever the parent says they do. Whatever the parent tells them to become a doctor, they want to become a lawyer. The child shouldn't always have to listen to the parent. The child should have some type of individual rights. So now you set up this debate, you have this conflict between respect, right? Valuing respect on one hand, valuing individual rights on the other hand. What about some other values?
Some goods. The value of goods.
Value goods? Explain. How would you value goods?
Like you have a watch, which has high value that watch.
Oh, value watch. So materialism, right? I would say that some people do value material things. Right? I don't know if that's a good value, but it's true. Some people do value material things. Some people are materialistic. So that's something that they could value. Here's another value or principle. Principle of utilitarianism. Utilitarianism says that we should do the greatest good for the greatest number of people. So how do we evaluate whether or not something is good to do? We look at the benefit to the majority of people. Right? If it benefits the greatest number of people, then that's something that's good to do. Other ideas? Power. Power could be valued. You think power is a positive value? It could be something that people value. Authority. So there are lots of different. Yeah, you have some suggestion?
No, not suggestion.
I can't hear you. Sorry.
Not suggestion. Not value.
Okay.
Time.
Time is a value. Time is difficult to see how time. I mean, time is important. Time is certainly important, but it's difficult for me to imagine a motion that will be debated where you would argue that we should enact this policy because of time. Because of time. I can't really think of the motion. So, we have a list of values here. I'm sure we could come up with more if we kept talking about positive, we could come up with more values and more principles. But the point here is that if you get a motion about a topic that you don't know a lot about, let's say it's not a topic you don't know anything about, right? Let's say it's a topic you know something about, you're just having trouble coming up with enough arguments to fill 7 minutes of time. Sound familiar? Right? Look at the values that are implicated by the motion. Look at the values, look at the conflict of values, because why? That will very often give you more arguments to make. That will very often give you more arguments that you can make. Let me give you an example. How about this house believes that child abusers should not be allowed to have more children. This house believes that child abusers should not be allowed to have more children. What value might you argue for on the proposition? What value would you argue? You're arguing child abusers should not be allowed to have more children. Yeah, quality of life, right? And who's the quality of life of who? Who are you most concerned about? Quality of life of the children. Right? So now you're going to come up with all these reasons why if you allow child abusers to have more children, why that would harm the quality of life of who? Of those children. What other value might you be able to argue? Happiness. Right? Might be able to argue happiness. If we allow child abusers to have more children, that's going to hurt the happiness of the children. But who else might that hurt? That might hurt the happiness of who? Of society. Right? Society, we're not happy about thinking about people abusing children, child abusers having more children, abusing even more children, and even more children. Right? That's not a good thing. Right? So now we have a second argument based on society. What might be another value that's implicated on the government side of that motion? I can't. Health. Health for the child. Health for the child. That kind of goes to quality of life. Anything else? How about justice? Right? There's something unjust about bringing an innocent child into the world, right? To a parent who we know is likely to abuse them, right? That's a different argument, right? That's a different argument, right? You see how that's different than the quality of life of the child, right? Now we're making an argument different, a bigger argument. We're making an argument about a principle, right? This principle of justice. So just by thinking about the values and the principles sometimes, it can help us come up with more arguments. The same way thinking about actors, this is another tip. So to think about values to come up with more arguments. You can also think about the actors in the motion to help you develop more arguments. So in this same motion, there are a few interests implicated by this motion. There's the children, of course, it's the most obvious, right? Then there's also society, societal interests. And then there's also, a third person's interests that are implicated by this. What's the third person? We got children, we got society at large. Who else's interests are implicated by this motion? This House believes that child abusers should not be allowed to have more children. Yeah, the child abusers, right? I mean, it's kind of mean to call them child abusers, maybe we won't call them parents. Right? That's what they are, they're parents. Right? So the interests of the parents, So maybe we can come up with some arguments that implicate the interests of the parents. What might be an argument on the government side that would implicate the interests of the parents in that motion? Some reasons why it would be a good idea not to allow them to have more children with their child abuse. It's in their interest. Can anyone think of any argument? You save them from jail! Argument. Save them from jail. Listen. First, as a child abuser, if we stop them from having more children, we're doing them a favor. If we come up with some type of policy or program, let's say we sterilize them. It should be kind of extreme, raises all kinds of issues with individual rights, interesting debate. But let's say that's what happens. That's our model, right? We're going to advocate that they're sterilized and that they not be allowed to have more children through sterilization. One of our arguments is, look, we're saving them from the end. They're sterilized. They can't have any more children. But this is good for them because at least they're not going to jail, right, for child abuse, and making that child now, leaving that child to either the streets or to become a ward of the state, or we don't know who's going to take care of that child. Or maybe they're going to be adopted by someone in a different country. So when you start thinking about the interests of everyone, you'd be surprised. You've got to push yourself to think, can I make arguments in favor of the interests of everyone that's implicated by the motion? Because the more you can push yourself to think about all of the interests of all of the parties that are implicated by the motion, that's going to give you a foundation to come up with more arguments. Does that make sense? Anyone have we'll do a little test. Test myself. Find out if I got, especially since I'm on video. But someone want to volunteer a topic on something that's related to Cameroon, like something that's Cameroon specific, that someone like myself from the United States, this is my first time in Cameroon, probably doesn't know anything about, like a Cameroon specific issue. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to show you that you can be able to talk about anything, even if you don't know anything about it. Something I don't know anything about, which is why I don't suggest the title. Anyway, suggestions. And I'll be honest, I'll tell you fine. Suggestions for any topic that's of public importance, but it's specific to Cameroon. Anyone have one? Any suggestions? Anyone? Any suggestions? Take suggestions? Yeah. I can't hear you. Polygamy debates about marriage. That polygamy is the best form of marriage. Okay. Polygamy is the best form of marriage. Now, I'll admit to you that I know something about marriage, right? So where am I going to start? I'm going to start with thinking, all right, well, in the United States of America, obviously, polygamy is not legal, right? In most parts of the United States, it's illegal, so it's not a dominant practice. It's not something that's generally seen as a good thing and a positive thing. But I could probably connect that debate to stuff I do know about, right? What's the flip side of polygamy? Monogamy, right? Monogamous relationships. So we do know a whole lot about monogamous relationships. Right? And I probably can talk about good parts about monogamous relationships, bad parts about monogamous relationships. So even if I don't have a lot of experience that I can draw upon for polygamous marriages, I have some experience that's still going to be related to the motion. Most motions are like that. Most motions are subjects that you may not know anything directly about the motion, but if you think about it, maybe ask yourself, well, what's the opposite of this motion? Maybe I can think about something on the opposite, and then I can now start to connect it to something that I do know something about, and now I can start to structure some arguments. How about another topic? Really hard, real specific. Hard with that.
How important is the normalization committee being put in place by FIFA?
I love it. When we do that. So, how important is the say that again? The normalization of what?
The normalization committee of FICA food put in place by FIFA. How important?
So he said, how important is the normalization committee of FICA put in place by FIFA?
Yeah.
Is that right? Did I get that right? Okay. I don't know anything about that. That's a great example. So, what do you do when you don't know anything about that? So I'm like, all right, don't know anything about that. Now I know what the word normalization means. That helps me out a little bit. What don't I know? I don't know anything about FICA. I'm barely probably pronouncing it right. It's probably an acronym for organization. I don't know anything about the organization. So, if I have to debate this, let's say I'm opposition, right? Oh my gosh, who is this? How am I going to debate? That's it'll be just this lecture. I'll make arguments, and you don't know any arguments. What are you going to do? First thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to panic, right? I'm not going to panic. The motion is, let me make sure I write it down. It's normalizing, say it one more time.
How important is the normalization committee put in place by FIFA? Put in place by FIFA on FICA food.
Okay. On FICA food?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's assume, I'm just going to rework this a little bit to make it into a debatable motion. Right? Let's assume the Gov is arguing that the normalization committee is important, right, for the regulation. They're arguing it's important. So what do? I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about what it does, but I know they're going to argue that it's important. So what am I going to argue? I'm going to argue it's not important. Right? I'm going to argue that it's not important for the regulation of food. Why? I don't know yet. Right? So how am I going to figure out? Well, let me think about what things are important for food. Right? Let me think about what I do know about how food gets to market. How food gets to market, maybe in rural countries. Right? Well, I'll assume they're farmers. Right? Farmers probably grow produce. Right? I was driving down the street. Tell me how wrong I am. It's okay. Right? So I was driving down the street. I saw some farmers. I'm just telling you. I'm walking you through my thought process. Right, so walking down the street, I saw people selling food on the road. I'm thinking, you know what? Somebody probably grew that, and then they probably went to the road, and now they're selling it. So I'm going to make my first argument. It's going to be something about how we don't need the committee. It's going to be unnecessary regulation for this food, right? It's going to be unnecessary regulation for this food. My second argument is that tell me how wrong I am, right? And I'm just telling you how I'm coming up with the arguments, right? This is the brainstorming, right? Normally I don't publicly brainstorm, but I'm just trying to walk you through my process, right? But go ahead and tell me why I'm wrong before I come up with the rest of my arguments.
Please, I'm sorry, I just wanted to define something. Is a motion supposed to be a question?
No, the motion is not supposed to be a question. It's a statement. So that's why I kind of reworded it. I kind of reworded it to be something to the effect of this House believes that the normalization by the blah, blah, blah committee put in place for food is a good idea. Right? I know I'm completely massacring that. Right, so he's supposed to be arguing that it's a good idea. He'd be arguing this is a debate. He'd be arguing this is a good idea. I'd be arguing that it's a good idea. So you had a comment to...
The thing is,
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me.
FICA food is actually an acronym for the Cameroon Football Association.
For the Cameroon what?
Football Association.
Oh, for the Cameroon... Oh, you said FIFA, not FICA. FIFA. Okay, I do know. I have heard of FIFA. You know why I've heard of FIFA? I'm going to tell you, I'm being honest, totally honest. I heard of FIFA because I saw it in an American video game on soccer. Right? So I saw it in an American video game on soccer. So now I know this is something about soccer and food.
FICA food. Actually,
Okay, I thought you said food. Okay,
Yes,
so let me clarify. This is why, hold on a second. What did I do? What first mistake did I make? I didn't write down the motion. Right? So the first thing you got to do is you got to write down the motion, make sure you have all the words of the motion. If you're trying to come up with an argument, you got to make sure you have the words of the motion exactly correct. Why am I struggling? Because I don't have words of the motion. First mistake. Go ahead.
Now, I just wanted to rephrase the motion.
Go ahead, rephrase it. I'm writing it down.
The this house believes that
Yes.
the normalization committee put in place by FIFA, that's the International Football Association, is important in FECAFO.
Put in place by FIFA
Yes.
is important in
It's important to Cameroon Football Association.
okay, gotcha. Okay, there we go. Great, all right. Now I got it. Now I've written it down, so I'm not making the number one mistake that we don't want to make, which is don't write down the motion, right? So now I see, okay, FIFA is like, it's a word I know. I know the word FIFA. I know the word football, right? I know that means soccer. So now I know, okay, we're talking about something that the normalization committee has put into place related to soccer. I don't know anything about what they put into place. I don't know anything about what they put into place. I don't know anything about why it's good. But what do I know? I need to argue that it's bad. Right? I know that they put something, they did something, and I need to argue that whatever that something is bad. Right? So one general argument you can always make when somebody does something or takes some type of action, puts in some type of regulation. Shouldn't have a regulation, right? More regulation is bad. So whatever additional regulations that they've added, whatever recommendations for normalization that the normalization committee has put into place, I want to argue that it's bad, that it's not important. It's not important to Cameroon football. And how could I do this, right? I could go with an argument that whenever you have an argument about any type of regulatory body or any type of governmental organization, or any type of organization that has some type of authority. What do organizations with authority do? They pass regulations, right? They pass rules. So anytime they want to have some new regulations and new rules, you could argue what? They shouldn't have so many rules. You could argue that less rules are better. As a matter of fact, if you want to go, I can go to the extreme. I could argue that we shouldn't have any of these organizations having so many rules, right? So that's number one. I'm already going to be thinking about a general principle of what? My general principle here is going to be deregulation. We should have less rules. Now, because I don't know a lot about the topic, right, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to look to who to give me the information. Say my partner doesn't know anything about the topic. Who am I going to look to now to give me the information? Tell you the trick. I'm going to look to my opponent. What do you mean you're going to look to your opponent to give you the information about the topic? Well, because my opponent, I'm opposition, right? He has to make a speech. He has to tell me all of the reasons why this is important to Cameroon football. What am I going to look for? I'm going to look for, when he's telling me why it's important, I'm going to look for logical fallacies. I'm going to look for pseudo-arguments. Right? I'm going to look for what values he's implicating so I can consider, okay, can I argue that the value that I'm probably going to advocate is more important? So if I can get you, I see I'm running out of time, let me get you to make a 1-minute speech on this. Can you do that? Is that possible? Because then I can conclude the lecture and show you how to do it without knowing it. Yeah, 1 minute speech for the government. Can you do that? Cool. So here you take the front. I'm going to sit. 1 minute speech. Real demonstration. Coming up with arguments when you know nothing about emotion. Go ahead.
The motion is this House believes that the normalization committee put in place by FIFA on FECAFO is very important. And I actually stand on that fact that the normalization committee put in place by FIFA is important to FECAFO. This is because this committee will come in place in 8 months' time as put forward by FIFA to regulate the constitutions in FECAFO. That is, looking at the technical issues, the technical department and the other departments that are being involved in FECAFO, and trying to put in place good laws that are going to govern FECAFO, so that in previous years, in the coming in subsequent years, this institution or this organization is going to deliver a good football in the country.
Yeah, finish 20 more seconds. Yeah.
I hereby conclude by saying that this committee put in placed by FIFA is going to be a plausible effect on FIFA.
Okay, so here's my response, right? So now I got to debate this. Right? You gave me some short arguments, right? So now I'll give you a short response, right? So let's try this. Okay, so you can time me if you want. Yeah, what's the question?
What if you get your partner to the person don't have any idea about motion? What if
Well, that's what I'm doing. I have no idea about this motion, right? So that's why I'm going to show you what I came up with, and then we're going to talk about it, and then let me see. So, the good speaker argues that the normalization of that's my sorry, that's telling me to wrap it up, which I will do. Okay, let's start over. So the good speaker has told us that the normalization committee by FIFA is important to Cameroon football. But I disagree for 3 reasons. Number one, the good speaker never told us why it was important. He had a lot of beautiful, eloquent rhetoric that says this is going to be good. He told us it was coming in 8 months, but he never told us what this was going to do. He never told us how important it was going to be. He never told us how it was going to change Cameroonian football in any kind of way. In fact, he told us that he wasn't sure how it was going to change Cameroonian football. Why? Because this committee is going to study what should be done in Cameroon. And I would say we should never say something is good until we know exactly what it is. My second argument would be, we don't need a committee from outside of Cameroon to come and tell us what is good for Cameroon football. I think Cameroonians know best what is good for them for football. In fact, Cameroonians for years have enjoyed football. Cameroonians for years have enjoyed playing this sport, have enjoyed watching this sport. In fact, children play football in the schools, and they enjoy the sport without FIFA. So reject FIFA and reject the normalization. I didn't know anything about FIFA. What did I do? I pointed out how he was wrong. I pointed out where his argument was incomplete. Right? I pointed out where your opponent's arguments are incomplete. And I just basically said, okay, if he's arguing this is good, it's got to be bad. Right? So let me argue this bad, and let me argue something that I think is going to I actually stuck in a fallacy because I made an audience video. What did I do? I said, oh, we all love football, Cameroon, right? Hey, Cameroon, and that makes people want to say I'm supporting football in Cameroon. But that's what I did since 2016 to New York. So these are things you can do to try to work around. These are things that you can do to come up with arguments. We don't know anything about the subject, and trust me, I do fear